The Shadow Man, a warning of life without sovereignty. There was a man, though he was not unlike many others, who wandered through life without direction, as though a shadow clung to him. He moved through the days, interacting with people, working through tasks, yet he was always detached from his own choices, his own desires. His name was not important. His story, however, was one that carried a quiet warning. To the outside observer, this man seemed to be living like everyone else. He had a job, a house, relationships. On the surface, nothing appeared to be out of place. But beneath this facade was a man who never fully claimed ownership of his life. Instead, he drifted, carried along by the currents of external influences. Every action he took, every decision he made, was influenced by something or someone else. He did not know the power of free will. When he awoke in the morning, it was not to a sense of purpose, but to a response to the demands of the day. The first thing he did was reach for his phone, checking messages, responding to emails, allowing the world to tell him how his day should unfold. It was as though he had handed over the reins of his life to the noise of the world. He did not know the power of responsibility. Throughout the day, he moved through his interactions with others as if on autopilot. Conversations, requests, and demands from colleagues, family, and friends passed through him, leaving no lasting impression. He rarely spoke up for himself, often yielding to the will of others, afraid of conflict or the discomfort of asserting his own needs. The people in his life took what they needed, but rarely did he ask for what he needed in return. He did not know the power of acceptance, accepting himself, or the necessity of accepting his own limits. As the day wore on, the shadow of doubt grew longer. He thought about the things he would rather be doing, the goals he wanted to pursue, but these thoughts were fleeting, overshadowed by the weight of responsibilities that seemed to pile up, responsibilities that weren't even his to begin with. He avoided facing the discomfort of setting boundaries, pushing his own desires aside for the sake of others. It seemed simpler, easier, but in doing so, he was giving up his autonomy, his sovereignty. The Shadow Man often felt disconnected from the world around him. He had no true sense of authority over his life. His decisions were reactive, not proactive. He rarely examined his own desires, much less acted on them. Instead, he lived for others, doing what was expected, maintaining the illusion of control by going through the motions but never truly choosing for himself. He lived in a constant state of frustration, of indecision, of lost opportunities. He did not realize that by not embracing free will, by not taking responsibility for his own choices, and by failing to practice acceptance of his own boundaries and desires, he was essentially living in a world that he had no power to shape. The more he allowed external forces to dictate his life, the more powerless he felt, the more he faded into the background like a shadow that could no longer be distinguished from the walls it clung to. There were times, fleeting moments, when the Shadow Man wondered if there was more to life than this. But these thoughts were quickly buried under the weight of the next task or expectation. Deep down, he felt the presence of something greater within him, a voice that urged him to break free, to claim his life, to set boundaries, to step into his true authority. But this voice was drowned out by the cacophony of external demands and internal doubts. What he did not realize was that he was bound by the chains of his own passivity, his own fear of discomfort, and his own reluctance to make the hard choices. In his heart, he was waiting for something to change, for an external event to come along and shift his life. But the change he needed could only come from within. The power to transform his life, to step into his own authority, was always his, but he could not see it. The Shadow Man lived as a spectator in his own life, unaware that the power to shape his reality was within his reach. He did not know the freedom that comes with making intentional choices, nor did he understand the strength that comes from setting boundaries. He was trapped in a loop of reactivity, never stepping into the full realization of his potential. The warning. The story of the Shadow Man is a cautionary tale, one that mirrors the lives of many who do not embrace the principles of free will, responsibility, and acceptance. It serves as a reminder that without these essential tools, we risk living a life that is dictated by others, by circumstances, and by our own limiting beliefs. We may drift through life hoping for change, but never realizing that change comes from within. It is only when we take ownership of our choices, honor our boundaries, and exercise our free will that we can begin to step out of the shadow and into the light of personal sovereignty. This story sets the stage for Chapter 4, where we explore the importance of living life with authority. Just as the Shadow Man lives passively, reacting to the world around him, so too can we find ourselves stuck in patterns of reactivity if we do not consciously choose to embrace our own authority. The sovereignty paradigm provides the framework for breaking free from this cycle, reclaiming our power, and living a life guided by intentional choices and personal responsibility. Now that we understand the consequences of living without sovereignty, we can explore the path to reclaiming it through the concepts of acceptance, responsibility, and free will, the foundation for living with authority.